Greetings. Welcome to another edition of YMAA Publication Center's Meet the Author. And today I have the unique privilege to talk to Dr. Roger Jahnke. Dr. Roger Jahnke is the author of a pioneering book, The Healer Within, which came out in 1997. And for those of you who might remember, this was one of the first major works that introduced many Americans and Europeans to the concepts of Tai Chi and Qigong. So welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm just delighted to be here.
Let me ask you to begin with, what got you started down this path? Why traditional
Well,
Tai Chi?
the short story is that my dad died when I was a little kid. Um, Before that, I wanted to be a baseball player. After that, I wanted to be a doctor. I went to medical school, and I discovered that nobody in medical school in the very late 1960s knew anything about disease prevention, and they would say things like, oh, well, we're doctors, we only just diagnose and treat disease. If you want to study health, you have to go someplace else. I found that very distressing, frankly, and so I dropped out of medical school, studied comparative world literature, and the first book that we read was the Tao Te Ching.
Hmm.
When I got to Tao Te Ching number 10, uh, and I'll just paraphrase it very briefly. First line says, can you calm down and quiet your mind and become aware of the natural unity of the cosmos, universe, whatever we want to say there. Second line says, do you use your body movements and your breath to sustain the suppleness of a newborn with no cares? And the third line says something like, can you, when you turn your attention inward, can you find the source of universal light? So I thought, yeah, like that. I always wanted to be a doctor of that, and so then I studied Chinese medicine and had a long career as a doctor of Oriental medicine or Asian medicine or Chinese medicine, a kind of a integrative medicine clinic here in Santa Barbara, and and then I got tired of treating sick people because they always want to be fixed, and Chinese medicine is based on mobilizing healing resources within us, and Qigong and Tai Chi turn that medicine on. So then I wrote the book, The Healer Within. I retired from my clinical practice, and I became the director of the Institute of Integral Qigong and Tai Chi, where we have trained over 3,000 people to be teachers and practice leaders and bring Qigong and Tai Chi to their communities throughout the world.
Now you founded that organization, is that
I
correct?
did indeed.
And that the inspiration of that was to spread the word?
Spread the word. And in fact, we have a mantra that says, "We train thousands to inspire millions to heal themselves for free."
I like that. I like that a lot.
Kind
When
of inherently revolutionary and kind of surprising. Another line that we use is, the most profound medicine is produced within the human system for no cost.
Very good, very good. I'm amused that you would cite the Tao Te Ching so early in our conversation. I remember there's this parable that maybe it was Huatou, one of these legendary parables that's often associated
Yes.
with the Tao Te Ching, where he meets the emperor and the emperor says something to the effect, excuse my paraphrasing, because the emperor is this great doctor and all these other doctors before him, and he was kind of saying, well, they puncture veins and give all these medicines, and I look at things much far out, and so I'm nothing really in terms of doctors, but
Yes. Yes. And I love
it's a
that.
different methodology, it's a different approach, right?
Basically,
Preventative.
what it's saying is, this is not an issue of medicine and surgery and pharmacy. This is an issue of living into your natural expression of your highest level of well-being and creativity and productivity, and leaving the strongest mark on your family and your community. If you wait till you get sick and you need a doctor, then you're going to spend all kinds of time that you basically will be wasting, because what you can do instead is just be well and vital and inspired, and that makes medicine that cures. Maybe it sounds a little glib, but it cures all diseases. How do we know that? Well, we know that there's research that suggests that every disease known to the human race has at least one recorded version of a spontaneous remission, meaning that something about that person healed them. Not something from somewhere, but something present here healed them. And I find that just remarkably inspiring. And then, Qigong and Tai Chi and Kung Fu, they're all really the same thing. And I love this idea. Gene, let's discuss this one. The sort of mythology is that older people do Tai Chi and younger people do Kung Fu. But actually, it's more important for younger people to do Tai Chi so that they can learn to calm down. And it's more important for older people to do Kung Fu so that they can sustain their muscle strength and their bone-muscle relationships and their flexibility. And so, when I go out to work in my garden, I pick up that shovel and I'm going, as if, and then if we think about it, like, who invented these things? Who invented Kung Fu? Well, it's not like we had a big army. We just had a farm and we were hunting. And then somebody came and said, like, we want to take your rice, and we raised our shovels and said, hell no. The idea that the martial arts are kind of like the foundation of everything, I hope you won't mind me saying, is secondary to the practical applications of stamina in a well-lived life of productivity and service.
I love what you said about older people doing Kung Fu, because I'm struggling with that right now. My teacher, my late teacher, Lam Kuan Wing, he last time I saw him before he passed away, he asked me if I was doing, still doing my Shaolin stuff, or I had transitioned to doing Tai Chi yet, and I was still, that was many years ago, so I was still
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
Shaolin. And I still do my Shaolin now. And he just laughed at me because he had gone way internal with this Bagua and Tai Chi, and
Beautiful.
and I was kind of like, I was like, oh no, stick with this hardcore stuff, and now I'm kind of grappling with that a lot. I'm definitely, Tai Chi has become more into play, but I'm still holding on to as much of my Kung Fu as possible. I mean, really, it's not a black or white thing. Tai Chi is a form
Right.
of Kung Fu.
Yeah, and it's all good for everybody. I mean, the foundational idea is that if we can find some way in, and that's one of the beauties of Qigong, is that it's an easy access methodology that doesn't require a lot of special talent to be able to generate some kind of a feeling like, whoa, there's something going on here. I just turned on the medicine within. That's the Qi. The Qi is the function. The function is maximizing my well-being and preventing diseases that I don't even know that I might get. And so then from there we can say, well, what other choices am I going to make? I'm going to make some choices about hydration and drinking tea. I'm drinking herbal tea right now. And food choices, and even the choices of our relationships. For sure, like through your own studies and training, that you end up with, your Kung Fu bros and sisses, and then you hang out with those people because you have this shared values. People who get tapped into Qi, they're basically tapping into, number one, universal resources, number two, those resources influencing function, But then number three, they enter into a community of people with shared values who are almost always philosophical people, and they're all almost always health maximization advocates. This is just a powerful realm. And then there's so many ways to do it, right? I mean, there's like the 10,000 kinds of Qigong and Tai Chi and Kung Fu.
Indeed, indeed. I want to bring it back to a quarter century ago when you released your book. Now, I'm not sure how many people are old enough to remember watching this, or old enough to remember what the status or awareness of Tai Chi and Qigong was in the late '90s. I mean, it wasn't until the White House Commission for Complementary and Alternative Medicine was 2000. It was the turn of millennium under President Clinton.
Yes.
So you preceded that. Um, what was it like back then? What was the climate and understanding of Tai Chi and Qigong
Mm.
back in
Yeah, it's a
1970s?
beautiful, big, long discussion that we'll have super briefly, and that is that just take yoga. Yoga arrived in the United States aplenty in the late 1800s and 1900s and all that. And Tai Chi was slow in arriving, and Kung Fu as well, slow in arriving in the United States to some extent because of the fact that China was in duress, mainland China was in duress, and some of the earliest exposure to these Chinese mind-body arts or martial arts or self-healing arts really delayed. My first exposure to Tai Chi was in 1967 when I was in Berkeley. I went to I'm from a place called Ohio. I went to California in 1967 to participate in what they call the Summer of Love. And I lived in Berkeley for that summer, and I had a job, and every day I would pass through a park, and there was a group of people who looked like they were walking on clouds. And I was very intrigued by that. And at one point, instead of just walking by, I kind of hesitated for a moment, and the leader of the class gestured me over. So that's a fairly robust presence of some Qigong and Tai Chi in 1967 and previously. And of course, we know that there are many master teachers who were here earlier than that, but their impact on the society was fairly moderate, shall we say, until much later. One of the most important things for me was studying Chinese medicine and then going to China. And so by 1989, I had already begun to actually, the beginning of my clinical practice was 1977, and I began teaching Qigong and Tai Chi in 1979 and 80, and then moved to California, opened my clinical practice, and then by 88, 89, I was really ready to go to China. In the meantime, I've taken like 10 research trips to China, large groups of people to Shaolin Temple, Wudong Mountains, many other temples and universities and so forth. In 1995, myself and a handful of others founded the National Qigong Association. There was enough presence of Qigong and Tai Chi in the United States at that point to actually coordinate an annual conference and so forth. And that's when my book came out. And so I would say that most people who know about these things say to me, your Healer Within came out a little early. You know, or you were among the first. And I like that a lot. You know, just the feeling of being able to make that contribution at that time. I think that if that same book, The Healer Within, were to be published these days, it wouldn't change much because it's all about ideas and methodologies that were prevalent in the United States in the mid-90s. So, there's a little ramble on that.
To follow up, where do you think Qigong is headed now in five
Well,
years?
that's an interesting one because for reasons that are difficult for anybody who's interested in these things to understand, Qigong is controversial. So, like for instance, if you went to China in the 1990s, as I did many times, one of my favorite, I've been to all the big cities, Shanghai, Beijing, Guangzhou, etc. But my favorite place to hang out, basically, as a city, Hangzhou, which is
Hmm.
the capital of Imperial China in the Song Dynasty at around the year 1000 by the Common Calendar. And we would go down to the park by West Lake at 5:30 in the morning, and there would already be thousands of people there. And by 7:30, everybody was gone to work. And so some people would be there for half an hour, and some people would be there for 2 hours. The amount of Qigong that was happening in China at that time was just magnitudes, massive, massive, thousands and thousands of people. Amazing. My most recent trip to China was in 2018, and in that same city, by that same West Lake, the number of people practicing Qigong was small, very small,
Hmm.
and largely due to we can call it a political phenomena in China called Falun Gong.
Uh,
Falun Gong being uh, declared as a cult,
yeah.
and there's a lot of politics around it. But the point is that Qigong and Tai Chi have been efficiently exported from China so that it doesn't matter what happens in China anymore. And the amount of research on Qigong and Tai Chi, if you go to the National Library of Medicine online, which is called PubMed, and you put in Tai Chi or you put in Qigong, you get hundreds and hundreds of really nicely designed, um, controlled trials that basically prove that Qigong and Tai Chi are safe and effective, and in some cases extremely effective. And then the National Institutes of Health have picked up Qigong as a part of the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health, which is a part of the NIH. And under the auspices of the science that's been emerging about Qigong and Tai Chi relative to physical health and mental emotional health, um, under the auspices of things like tonifying vagal function, vagal being the parasympathetic nervous system, uh, uh, maximizing telomere sustainability, telomere being the part of the DNA that provides the fuel for cell replication. And if you successfully replicate cells for longer than usual, well, then that's the fountain of youth, and it's free. You can just do it for free. And there's also mitochondrial fitness that comes in there, and the extent to which Qigong and Tai Chi have an influence on the immune system. Many, this may be controversial, but many people who have a good, strong Qigong and Tai Chi practice remained unvaccinated during certain difficult eras, more recently regarding infectious diseases, and have broadly across the board, those people have less obesity and they have less chronic disease. And the people who basically have dangerous versions of viruses and other diseases, the ones who lose their lives are the people who don't have health in the first place. The people who do have health in the first place, because they practice Qigong, Tai Chi, hydration, nutrition, maximizing rest, disassociating from people and ideas that cause you stress and strain. It's just like, it's a medicine. It's a medicine that's produced within our own body, and and when we have a practice, we produce it for free. So the answer to your question is that I think that Qigong, Tai Chi, yoga, and all the other methodologies that mobilize a purposeful relationship with the three treasures being the body and the mind and emotions and the transcendental spiritual aspect of ourselves. So when a person learns these practices and associates more efficiently with their own three treasures, it's just remarkable. So it's cheap. The amount of equipment that you need is zero. You don't need a membership to a gym or anything like that. The medicine that we're producing within us has no negative side effects. You don't have to be sick to use it. You can use this medicine to keep from getting sick. So I'm pretty sure that Qigong and Tai Chi and many emergent contemporary iterations will do just fine and continue to expand. Right now, recently I've been doing courses online with 300 and 400 and 500 people who show up to basically do healer within medical Qigong and develop a practice and sustain that practice. And I'll tell you something that happened just yesterday. A woman in one of these classes said, when I started this 7 weeks ago, I am legally blind. When I started this 7 weeks ago, I could only see vague alterations in undistinguishable light sources. And yesterday in this class, she just raised her hand and said, I can see. I can see to turn on I can find the knobs on my television. I built a fire in my fireplace and I could see that fire, and I didn't feel like it was a dangerous thing for me to do to build
Wow.
that fire. I was stunned. And this happens a lot with, just every kind of disease that you can think of, including things like heart disease and Parkinson's disease. And wow, there's all this information now on Alzheimer's avoidance. And the top values for Alzheimer's avoidance type lifestyle is to have some kind of body movement, some kind of breath practice, some kind of meditation, some kind of modified nutritional intake with a kind of an anti-inflammatory foundation, and hydration and sleep and so forth. And all these things fit together. In China, it's called yang sheng. Yang sheng means nourishing life. It doesn't mean treating disease. It means maximizing and sustaining the life force for the experience of a productive and vital day-to-day experience. Back
Mm.
to you, Gene.
Very good. I love the way you put that. Um, well, I mean, your video, the Healer Within, is available through YMAA Publication Center now. And why don't you tell our viewers where else they can find you?
Yeah, well, first of all, just to say thank you so much to YMAA. Dr. Young is a person that I have actually met and spoken to and have a high regard for. And so I'm honored to be a part of the community of teachers and practitioners that are collaborating with YMAA.
Hmm.
And yeah, and I recommend that people have a look at the courses, including my own, that are available through YMAA, and the DVDs that can be acquired through Amazon and so forth. To contact me and the Institute of Integral Qigong and Tai Chi, it's a very simple URL for your internet, and it's basically the first letter of each word, iiqtc.org. So that's Institute of Integral Qigong and Tai Chi, but it's just the first letters, iiqtc.org. And if you go there, you can find out more about, remember we train teachers, we have lots of products there. You can get on a mailing list, and we send out newsletters on a fairly regular but infrequent basis. So we could just leave it at that, iiqtc.org. Gene, thank you so much for the opportunity to share that.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Wish you well.